My wife hid a secret family in our guest house, but it's what I found in the basement that shattered everything. Mark, 25 years old, have always found solace in predictable, the measurable. As a mechanical engineer, my world is one of precise calculations, where every force has an equal and opposite reaction, and every problem has a logical, solvable root cause. My life was a well-designed machine, humming along efficiently. My wife, Sarah, 23, was a beautiful, spontaneous element I never knew my blueprint was missing. She was a splash of color on my monochrome schematics, the variable that made the outcome exciting rather than uncertain. We had been together for 2.5 years, married for 6 blissful months, and I believed I understood the complex, wonderful algorithm of her heart. That belief was a foundation of my happiness, a foundation that began crack the day she mentioned her cousin Colin. It was a Tuesday evening. We were eating dinner, a meal I cooked, a perfectly balanced recipe of protein, carbohydrates, and vegetables. Sarah was pushing her food around her plate, a telltale sign of anxiety. "Mark, I got a call today." "It's my cousin, Colin," she said, her voice unusually tight. I looked up, curious. In all our time together, her family had been a vague, distant constellation. She spoke little of them, and I, an orphan who'd built my life from scratch, never pressed. Family was a complicated subject for both of us, an unspoken agreement to focus on the one we were building together. "I didn't know you had a cousin named Colin," I remarked gently. "He's from my mom's side. We weren't close growing up," she explained quickly, avoiding my eyes. "But he's in trouble. He and his wife, Lena, their building was condemned. They have nowhere to go. They're completely desperate." The plea that followed was layered with a panic that seemed disproportionate to the situation. Her eyes, usually so bright and full of laughter, were wide with something that looked like fear. She painted a picture of tragic circumstances, unscrupulous landlords, lost deposits, no family to turn to except for us. "They just need a bridge, Mark. A few weeks, a month at most, to find jobs and get back on their feet. We have the guest house. It's just sitting there." The guest house, a small, somewhat dilapidated structure at the far end of our property, a feature that sold me on the house because of its potential as a workshop and studio. It was functional but Spartan, with a small kitchenette, a bedroom and a bathroom, and, as I would later learn, a basement. My logical mind immediately generated a list of objections. Strangers on our property, the liability, the invasion of our newlywed privacy, the financial cost of utilities. But seeing the raw distress on Sarah's face, I did what I always did when her emotional world clashed with my logical one. I yielded. Her happiness was a parameter I was always willing to adjust my calculations for. "Okay," I said, reaching for her hand. "A month? We can help for a month." The gratitude that flooded her face was intense, but again, edged with that strange, unnerving relief. She threw her arms around me. Thank you, Mark. You won't regret this, I promise." In hindsight, that promise was the first lie of many. They arrived on a gray, drizzly Saturday. Colin was not what I had pictured. He was older than Sarah, closer to my age, with a lean, wiry frame and eyes that didn't just observe but assessed. His handshake was firm, too firm, a test of dominance rather than a greeting. His wife, Lena, was a ghost beside him, mousy-haired and slight. She barely made eye contact, her movements hesitant, almost fearful. They had shockingly few possessions, a couple of duffel bags and a single, large trunk that Colin handled with particular care. Sarah's behavior was the most alarming change. She was a whirlwind of nervous activity, flitting between the main house and the guest house, carrying extra linens, lamps, and groceries. She spoke to them in a low, urgent tone, and when I approached, the conversation would halt abruptly. She instituted an unspoken rule. I was to give them their space. They're embarrassed, Mark. This is so hard for them. Let's not make them feel like we're hovering. Our peaceful domestic life evaporated. Our shared dinners, where we debrief about our days, were replaced by silent, tense meals or Sarah eating quickly and retreating to the guest house with a plate for them. Our intimacy dwindled to nothing. She was always tired, always preoccupied, her mind clearly elsewhere. When I tried to broach the subject, to express my growing discomfort, she reacted with defensiveness that was entirely new. "Why are you being like this?" she'd accuse, her voice sharp. "They're family. They're going through a hellish time. Can't you find a shred of compassion? Why is everything so black and white with you? Why do you have to be so controlling?" The accusation stung because they were so foreign to our usual dynamic. My reasonable concerns were being reframed as monstrous inflexibility. The woman I loved was becoming a stranger, and the source of the change was festering in my backyard. The incident that shattered any remaining illusion of normalcy occurred on a Tuesday night. I was working on a complex design for a new hydraulic system and needed a specific, calibrated torque wrench. I knew it was in my workshop, the guest house. It was after 11 p.m. and the lights were off. Assuming the occupants were asleep, I decided to slip in quietly. I used my key and entered the dark, silent space, using my phone's flashlight to navigate to my tool chest. The air was still and cold. As I found the wrench, I froze. A sound, not from the bedroom, but from a direction that made no sense. A faint rhythmic tap, tap, tap. It was coming from the locked basement door. I'd always kept that door locked, the key on my main keychain. The basement was an unfinished crawl space, home to nothing but old financial records, childhood memorabilia I couldn't bear to throw away, and the ghosts of Christmases past. I crept closer, my heart beginning to thud against my ribs. I pressed my ear against the cold wood. The tapping stopped, but in the silence that followed, I heard something else. A muffled, hiccuping sound. A whimper. It was small, fragile, and utterly, terrifyingly human. A child's cry. My mind reeled. Colin and Lena didn't have children. Sarah had never mentioned a child. This was impossible. Before I could process the horror, a floorboard creaked behind me. I spun around, my phone's beam illuminating Lena's pale, terrified face. She stood in the doorway to the living area, wrapped in a thin robe. "Mark," she whispered, her voice shaking. "What are you doing here?" I needed a tool. I stammered, my own voice unsteady. "I heard something. In the basement." "What was that?" Her eyes widened in panic. "Rats," she blurted out. "It's a rat infestation. Colin set traps. The scratching, it's awful. You shouldn't be down here." She was a terrible liar, her gaze darting toward the basement door and then back to me, pleading. The air was thick with her fear. I knew, with a certainty that chilled me to the bone, that she was lying. I muttered an apology and left. The image of the sturdy new padlock on the basement door and the sound of that whimper burning in my mind. The confrontation with Sarah the next morning was catastrophic. I approached her calmly, logically, laying out the facts. The sound, Lena's panic reaction, the new lock. Her response was a volcano of rage. "You went spying? I knew it. I knew you didn't trust me. You violated their privacy, Mark. How could you? It is rats. Are you calling me a liar now, too? Is your precious logic so perfect that you can't comprehend a simple pest problem?" She screamed. She cried. She twisted my concern into a pathological need for control. It ended with her throwing a handful of clothes into a bag. "I can't be here with you right now. I can't look at you. I'm staying in the guest house. They need me, and apparently You need to learn what trust means." The slam of the front door echoed through the house, a sound that felt final. My wife had chosen them over me. The equation of my life had not just been unbalanced. It had been fundamentally broken. Alone in the silence of the house, she had abandoned my engineer's mind, trained for problem solving, kicked into overdrive. If logic and direct communication had failed, I would have to gather data. I started with the source, Sarah's family. I called her mother, a woman named Barbara, who lived 3 states away. We had a cordial, if distant, relationship. "Barbara, hi, it's Mark. Sorry to bother you. I just had a quick question. Sarah's cousin Colin is staying with us for a bit, and I realize I know nothing about him. Wanted to make him feel welcome." The silence on the other end of the line was profound. "Colin," Barbara finally said, her voice confused. "Mark, sweetheart, I don't have a nephew named Colin. Sarah's only cousin on my side, David, died in a car accident when she was 16. The world tilted on its axis. The lie was so absolute, so brazen, it was dizzying. Who were these people living in my guest house? The next few days were a blur of digital sleuthing. Lena's name, mentioned once, yielded nothing. Colin was a ghost. But I remembered the yoga retreat Sarah had taken a few months prior, a 4-day trip to a city 2 states away. It had seemed innocuous at the time. Now, it felt like a crucial coordinate in a sinister plot. I spent a night scouring online news archives from that city and the surrounding area, and then I found it, a small article from a local weekly paper. The headline was mundane, but the content was explosive. Local couple sought for questioning in custody disappearance. The article detailed how Michael and Eleanor Gable had failed to return their 6-year-old daughter, Lily, to state-appointed foster care after a supervised visit. The parents claimed the system was corrupt and they were protecting their child. There were grainy photos. The man had a different hairstyle and the woman looked gaunt, but there was no mistaking them. It was Colin and Lena. The article described Lily as a shy girl with a small, strawberry-shaped birthmark on her left cheek. The pieces of the horrifying puzzle snapped together. The whimpering, the locked basement, the secrecy, the trunk they carried so carefully. They weren't just down on their luck relatives. They were fugitives who had kidnapped their own daughter, and my wife was hiding them. The question was, why? Was she a victim, manipulated by a charismatic and dangerous man, or was she something else entirely? I knew I had to act, but I needed irrefutable proof. The police would need more than a husband's paranoid story and a printed news article. I needed to see inside that basement. My opportunity came on a Thursday afternoon. I was working from home when I saw all 3 of them, Sarah, Colin, and Lena, get into Colin's beat-up sedan and drive away. My heart hammered against my ribs like a trapped bird. This was my chance. I grabbed the duplicate key to the padlock. I had bought the lock, after all, and a high-power flashlight. The walk to the guest house felt like a mile. The air was still. I unlocked the door and stepped into the eerie silence. The place felt different now, charged with malevolence. I went straight to the basement door, my hands trembling so badly I could barely fit the key. The lock clicked open. The door creaked on its hinges, revealing a steep descent into darkness. The smell hit me first, damp earth, mildew, and the faint, sweet, sour scent of unwashed humanity. I found a pull cord and a single, bare bulb flickered to life, casting long, dancing shadows. The sight that met my eyes would be seared into my memory forever. This was not a storage space. It was a cell. In the far corner, away from the stairs, was a small, thin mattress on a concrete floor, covered with a dirty blanket. A plastic bucket sat nearby, its purpose sickeningly clear. A few well-worn children's books were stacked on an overturned crate. A single, ragged teddy bear, missing an eye, lay forlornly on the pillow, and on the concrete wall, drawn in crayon, was a stick-figure drawing. A tall man, a woman, a small girl, and a smiling son. It was a child's cry for help, etched permanently into this dungeon. A wave of nausea washed over me. I had to get out. As I turned to leave, my foot caught on something metallic under the wooden stairs. I bent down and pulled out a heavy metal lockbox. It wasn't mine. The lock was cheap. A few hard blows with a hammer from my toolbox, and it gave way. Inside, I found a stack of documents that systematically dismantled my reality. There were fake driver's licenses for Michael and Eleanor Gable, with their photos but different addresses. There was a bundle of cash, neatly bound, at least $10,000. But at the bottom of the box, nestled beneath the money, was a small, familiar leather-bound journal. I recognized it instantly. I had given it to Sarah for her birthday the previous year. She had said she wanted to start journaling to process her thoughts. I felt a cold dread as I opened it. The entries began innocuously enough. Musings about her day, about us. But about a year ago, the tone shifted dramatically. She wrote about meeting a man named Michael online, in an encrypted forum for people who believed they were victims of a deep-state family court system. She wrote about their long conversations, their shared conviction that the government was stealing children. She described a kindred spirit, a warrior for truth. The entries became more intense, more intimate. She detailed her plan to help them. The yoga retreat was a cover to meet them in person, to finalize the logistics of their escape. She wrote about me with a chilling, clinical detachment. Mark is a good man, but his world is so small. He believes in systems, in rules. He'll never see it coming. The guest house is perfect, isolated. He never goes out there. It's fate. The most recent entry, dated the week before they arrived, contained a sentence that stopped my heart and shattered my soul. Michael understands me in a way Mark never could. Once they're settled and the initial search dies down, we can be together properly. Lena is fragile. She won't last. She'll break, and then it will be just us. We'll raise Lily as our own. This is our fresh start. I slumped against the damp wall, the journal falling from my numb fingers. It wasn't just about hiding them. She was in love with him. She was a willing, eager participant in a kidnapping. Our entire marriage, our life together, felt like a carefully constructed lie, a stage set built to conceal a monstrous crime. She had not only betrayed our vows, she had betrayed every semblance of human decency. She saw me not as a partner, but as a useful idiot, a mark providing cover for her and her lover's delusional fantasy. I didn't confront her. There was nothing left to say. The woman I loved was a fiction, with methodical precision, born more from shock than courage. I did what my logical mind knew was right. I took out my phone and documented everything. I photographed the basement from every angle, the drawing on the wall, the miserable bed, the bucket. I photographed every page of the journal, every fake ID, the stack of money. I collected the evidence of my own devastation. Then I drove straight to the police station. The hours that followed were a surreal blur. I sat in a cold, brightly lit interview room, repeating my story to two stone-faced detectives. I showed them the photos. The journal was the clincher. Their professional detachment cracked when they saw it. One of them, a veteran with tired eyes, looked at me with something akin to pity. "You did the right thing, son," he said quietly. A raid was planned for a first light the next morning. I spent the night in the empty house, staring at the ceiling, unable to sleep, unable to think. The machine of my life had not just broken down. It had exploded, and I was lying in the shrapnel. As dawn broke, I watched in the living room window. The scene unfolded with silent, terrifying efficiency. Unmarked cars blocked the driveway. Officers in tactical vests swarmed the guest house. I saw Colin Michael burst out the door, wild-eyed and screaming, before he was tackled and pinned to the wet grass. Lena was let out quietly, her head bowed, sobbing uncontrollably. Then a female officer emerged, carrying a small bundle wrapped in a thick blanket. A tiny, pale face with wide, terrified eyes peeked out. Lily, seeing her, a real, living child who had been imprisoned in my home, made the nightmare violently, awfully real. The last person brought out was Sarah. She wasn't struggling or crying. She was calm, her face a mask of cold resignation. As they guided her towards a police car, she turned her head. Her eyes scanned the front of our house and locked onto mine through the window. There was no remorse, no sorrow, no apology, just a flat, empty hatred that froze the very air in my lungs. In that moment, any lingering love or hope I had clung to turned to dust and blew away. The aftermath has been a long, slow avalanche of legal and emotional fallout. Sarah, Michael, and Eleanor are in custody, facing charges of kidnapping, harboring a fugitive, and conspiracy. My testimony, coupled with a journal, made me a key witness, but also clearly established my complete ignorance and victimhood. I have filed for divorce. The paperwork is cold and final, but the house, our home, is unbearable. Every room is a museum of her deception. The kitchen where we cooked together, the living room where we laughed, the bedroom we shared, they are all tainted, haunted by the ghost of the woman I thought I knew. I am selling it. The for sale sign is a stark admission of defeat. I am seeing a therapist, a kind woman who tells me that trauma is not a logical problem to be solved, but a wound to be tended. It's a difficult concept for me. My friends have been my anchors, but the betrayal has left a deep scar of distrust. How do you ever learn to trust your own judgment again when it was so catastrophically wrong? I sometimes allow myself to think of Lily. I hope she is safe, surrounded by people who will help her heal from this unimaginable ordeal. In a twisted, terrible way, my discovery saved her. That thought is the only sliver of light in this profound darkness. My old life is gone, obliterated. But I am an engineer. I am a builder. From the rubble of this calculated, cruel betrayal, I have to believe I can build something new, something stronger, and most importantly, something real. And this time, I will be the one who runs every stress test, who checks every weld, and who owns the blueprint down to the last solitary detail.